Hi everybody and welcome back to Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson, and today I want to give you a snowy walk around in my garden here at Crystal Cottage. We have had 30 centimetres or more of snow the last couple of days and the garden looks gorgeous. So I want to take you around to have a look at all the evergreen plants that do very well in winter wonderlands and still look lush and green and give us a pop of colour through the snow because they are gorgeous. I have made a point of, in certain areas of my garden, going around and planting evergreen plants because we have longer winters here in Sweden than many other parts of the world, and some of you never get snow. So wait until you see how beautiful it is when it snows. Let's get on with the tour. So I just want to start by showing you our street here outside of our cottage, how deep the snow is, and it hasn't been cleared, so there's no way that we can really get out of our driveway at the moment and drive down the street. But you can see our cottage here behind all of these beautiful bushes we have. And then we get round the corner and go down into our garden here where you can see all of these beautiful Norway spruce that beautifully outline like a frame our cottage in the distance there amongst all the other plants and the snow. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's like a fairy tale every time I go into this pathway. And then you can see here more areas of the garden and these thea bushes that are around the edge of our inner garden. And back here you can see more of the Norway spruce, and these plants are so well adapted to snow as they are flexible and can take the weight of the snow falling on their branches. So here I just wanted to give you a quick little tour around of the garden, parts of the garden I should say. Look at this bench full of snow in the area called Cozy Cove. And then here we carry on behind Cozy Cove into the area of our garden called the Wild Orchard Garden. And in this area I keep all the trees and bushes at around about 3 meters high so that we have alleyways that grow out during the summer seasons. And there are lots of wild plants that grow in this area. I don't plant anything that I've bought or anything else in this area. I like to see what comes by itself, and there are so many amazing plants and flowers that flush out here during the summer season. So from now on I want to show you some of the evergreens that are flourishing in this winter landscape here in our garden. This area of our garden is called Joachim's Corner, and it's north facing. It's behind our Crystal Cottage, and it's shaded all year round, and especially in the summer because we have a huge beech tree that grows here and a huge silver birch tree. But underneath that, as you can see down here, I have planted an awful lot of different varieties of rhododendrons, and they are doing so well here. And you can see the leaves are very green and vibrant and beautiful under the snow. And when it gets very, very cold, like we've had to round about minus 14 degrees here, then the leaves fold in together downwards as close to the stem as possible. And they look like they've completely dried out and are about to fall off. But then as soon as it starts getting warmer again, they just open up and spread out again. And in front of me here, this beautiful example of this variegated variety of rhododendron. I just had to have one of those in the garden because I haven't seen those very often, and they seem to do just as well during the winter months. Now I have a lovely pine tree, a younger pine tree that I planted here, and I just want to say that even though I'll be going around kicking my plants, I'm kicking them with love to show you what's hiding underneath the snow. Otherwise you're not going to be able to see anything. So no plants were harmed in the making of this video, although it might look like that. I've put the names of all the plants on the screen just before we get to seeing what they are. So you can go out and search these varieties yourself if you're out and about and are looking for evergreen plants for your garden. because there are so many wonderful plants. For example, look at this beautiful monkey puzzle tree in front of me here. I planted this in my garden 3 years ago now, and it's been doing absolutely fine. There have been a lot of misconceptions about this plant not being able to take cold temperatures, but it comes from places where it's colder up in the mountains. So, of course, it can take minus temperatures at certain times of the year. So, it's been doing absolutely fine here. It's actually spread out its branches much more. Last summer, I think it grew at least 6 inches more on all the branches, but it didn't actually grow upwards. So I'm hoping this season it will start growing upwards. But then we go on around in the garden and you can see so many more rhododendrons. They are really one of the staples that I've planted here because they give so much interest all year round. They're green and lush during the winter. And then when the spring comes, I have so many different colours of rhododendron flowers. I've seen so many different colours while I've been out and about, and I've just wanted a little bit of everything. So I have everything from light pink to dark pink to light purple to dark purple, from dark red to peach coloured, white with pink. I have so many different colours and varieties of rhododendrons in my garden that I am so happy. Look how gorgeous they look under the snow. And they look so beautiful when it's a blue day, blue sky in the winter, and then I can look out of my window because I've strategically placed them all around the edges of our windows that we see out most of where we're sitting in the winter. So now here, this is one of the many different varieties of hollybush I have in the garden, and they're also a wonderful staple to have. They do very well in shaded areas or dappled light areas. I do actually have a couple of these that are in direct light, but that's not their favourite position in the garden. They do like to be in dappled light to shaded areas. So they have different colours on their leaves and stems, and they're very beautiful as well. And then as we go around here, this pile of snow here, there is actually a dwarf pine bush growing. So I'm just going to show you that because that gives a little bit of wintergreen colour outside of our bathroom window. So now we are actually in the area of our garden called the Botanical Garden, and here I have so many different types of plants, and this is the area of the garden that I keep maintained, buy lots of plants for, prune, move around plants, experiment with plants with evergreen leaves and plants that come up with flowers. So we have lots of flowers in the summertime as well. But look at these beautiful leaves. They stand out so wonderfully during the winter, don't they? And as we go on here, there is another plant hiding here that grows quite slowly, maybe a few inches per year, but this is a beautiful fir tree, and I don't have any others in the garden, I don't think. This is the only one, and I'm glad the only one I have is a blue fir. So this one is absolutely gorgeous. It gets these lovely, tiny, or small, should I say, red pine cones on it every season, and against the blue, it really stands out and looks amazing. So here we go on to this bubble here, and underneath here I have a boxwood, and I have many boxwoods growing around the edge of this plant border here, and they are absolutely wonderful plants. They do so well during the winter. Look at these lush green leaves. There are absolutely no problems with this plant that has been hiding there under all that snow. And this is a bush that stands upright. It's all been crushed, but it will bounce up again after the snow has melted. And then here we move on to my bamboos, and they also seem to be doing really well. I planted these, I think, 2 years ago, and some of them have grown double as tall. Some of them are around about the same height, but they have managed to survive the winter now. 2 winters. Yes, 2 winters. So I've had them a year, I would say, just over a year. And they're doing really well for me, and I'm expecting them to grow up to 3 meters high to give us a lovely layer behind us as we sit in the benches that we put out in the garden during the summer season. And there's our Crystal Cottage with the view of the Botanical Garden, some of the Botanical Garden. And as I said, it's very important that the view from our windows from the cottage, that we see green foliage during the winter months. And that's why I've planted many evergreen plants in this area specifically of the garden. And then down here at the bottom, look at this. I have some ivy growing and it's doing really well. This is English ivy. And I can't have this anywhere in the garden, really. I've tried to plant it different places. It does fine itself and grows fast, but we get deer in the garden and they seem to love this plant. They nibble it all the way down to a stump. But because that one was growing in amongst a fence, it's managed to survive. And here I have another evergreen bush that's looking fine. These bushes, they do get a little bit more browner in their tonation during the winter month. It's quite normal for them to get a little bit brown, yellow looking. And then when the spring comes, they start getting darker and darker green. And in the summer, they're dark green again. And they grow out more of their bristles. So they are fine. Even if you think they might be dying back because they're turning a little bit brown, they're actually okay. And here in front of me is another kind of holly, and I absolutely love this bush. This is a variegated plant with yellow and green colours, and look at the combination together. It's just stunning. Really beautiful. This really does pop in the snow. It looks beautiful. But not only that, during the summer, this plant also looks so gorgeous because it's so unique compared to many of the other plants in the garden. The combination of that dark yellow, it's not just a pastel yellow, it's a dark yellow with the dark green leaves as well. It's just lovely. And down here I have another evergreen bush which has a very different type of bristles on it. And this one, unfortunately, I couldn't find the name of it, so I couldn't put it in the video. And I haven't seen it very often, so I'm going to have to try and find out what the name of it is again. But again, you can see this one is quite yellow now during the winter months, and I really like that. It's changed colour to a yellowy colour. And then in the summer, it's a darker kind of greeny orangey colour. So it really does switch up its colour a lot. It's lovely. So once again here, you cannot see the bushes, but under this pile of snow, I have juniper bushes. And they are also absolutely fine and have their lovely green colour. They kind of spread out more to the sides. So with time, I'm going to have to keep these pruned back. Otherwise, they're going to be splaying out into the grass area outside of their border. But just to show you, underneath the snow, they are very, very happy doing their thing. Absolutely beautiful. They're very soft and they splay out. They don't just grow upwards. And that is a different type of shape. And I really like that. So that's why I bought some of those as well to fill out this area. I've had them in an area where it was quite sunny. They didn't like that very much. So I've moved them in under the apple trees. That's where they're planted now. And now we're here. These are some dwarf pine trees, or bushes we can call them, because they're not going to be trees, but these are dwarf pine bushes that can, with time, still get probably a couple of meters tall, but they are looking beautiful under my silver birch trees in this border here. And I have different types of evergreens going in this border, where I've put wood chips on top of the soil. The only other thing that comes up in this border is daffodils in the springtime, so I'm looking forward to my daffodils coming up. But other than that, this is a little evergreen border with different types of plants, pines, and I think I have junipers in there as well, and some other things. So they're all happily tucked under the silver birch trees here, and we can see them from the cottage. And as we go on here, I have a much larger version of these pine bushes. This one is quite big, even though it's completely smothered with snow. I can take a little bit off here to show you the top. But this pine bush actually has been planted in the garden for over a year now and grows extremely fast, but in a bush form. So it's a ball. It's very nice. And that's why I have it at the back of the garden, so that it can have space to reach its full potential as much as possible. And then we go into an alleyway here that leads into our area of the garden called West Side Garden. And that's because we sit in this side of the garden actually during the mornings when we have our breakfast during the summer season. So we have the sun coming towards us from the east that goes round south, and then it goes down behind this garden in the west. So this area of the garden is fully exposed to the sun most of the day. And I have a few different types of evergreens growing in amongst all sorts of other things here as well. And the Norway spruce have been in this area for a long time, so they're much taller and have to be trimmed. I actually go in and I prune the tops of them every year and the ends of all of the branches to stop them growing up. I want them to get thicker, bushier. And as you can see here, I have many different other smaller bushes, and they're all doing very well. And I found that it's also quite easy to move these bushes around during, I would say the best time of the season to move them around would be springtime, before they really start flushing out their growth, while they're still half dormant, but you can still get into the ground to pull them out. They can be moved around quite easily. The Norway spruce are very resilient. They can be moved around to different areas. Pine trees, they seem to be a little bit more fussy. You can lose them if you do it at the wrong time. But most of these bushes, they actually, when you plant them, they take quite a few years before they establish a root ball that is really tightly in the ground so that you can't get them up. So yeah, if they start getting too big and you can't prune them, or you don't like the shape, then you can move them around quite easily, is what I want to say. So from here on, we'll move out of our west side garden area into our inner garden. And around the inner garden, I have a lot of Thea Brabant bushes, and they are absolutely perfect for making new garden areas because they give you evergreen all year, of course, and then they shield from the other areas of the garden. Now here in front of you, you can see my lovely Scotch pine that I planted a couple of years ago, and this has grown very fast as well. And I'm very pleased about that. I can't wait for this to grow up lovely and tall, so that we have a tree that's in the middle of our garden that will be evergreen and will be a focal piece, because I just love the needles on these trees. They're just so beautiful. And then, you know, the trunks turn a lovely reddish colour, which is beautiful. I just can't wait for that to get taller and taller and taller. It's doing so well. I think since I planted it a couple of years ago, I have at least 1 meter of extra growth. So that's just amazing. And again, looking at these beautiful Thea Brabant bushes that have been in the ground now for about 4 years, and I bought them at around 60 centimeters tall, and now they are 2 meters or so. So they've grown extremely fast, and they're doing their job of filling out and looking gorgeous. The only thing about these plants is it seems that the summers are getting warmer and warmer, but these plants, they do cope quite well with this, but after extended periods without water, they will start browning out and they will eventually fade away. This Norway spruce you can see in front of our Crystal Cottage here is one that I moved from our wild orchard garden to the botanical garden, and an example of being able to move a larger tree that has survived and done very well. There's been no problem with that whatsoever. Now, even though this bush here in front of me, this red dog bush, isn't an evergreen, it is such a beautiful plant for winter interest. How many plants do you see that have bright red stems like this? And look at the contrast against the snow. How could I not mention this plant in this video? Because basically it is kind of an evergreen. It gives you so much winter interest. It's absolutely beautiful. And then this plant is absolutely covered with green leaves all summer, and then gets small white flowers on it. And then when you get into the autumn, the whole bush turns a fiery red colour all over, and it's amazing. So every single season, this plant will give you just an amazing display. And another one I want to mention is this one here, because even though this also isn't officially an evergreen plant. It has stems that stay green all winter too. And I'm not sure if it's going to show very well on the video, but these stems are green and I can see the contrast between that and the snow and everything else around. So it's a very nice plant for that. And then also you do get a lot, I mean a hive of flowers all over it in the spring season, and then lovely small green leaves for the rest of the summer. Beautiful plant as well. So here we are walking on towards the courtyard garden between our Crystal Cottage and the annex that you can see here now. And I will just pan around and show you the garden. Oh, you know what? I could just stay sitting here in the garden like this, because even though it's white snow all around and you might think it's freezing cold, it's actually not freezing cold at the moment. It's actually plus degrees. I think it's around 0 or 1 degree at the moment, but the snow will stay here for a little while longer because it's so deep and it's just so refreshing. Let's carry on with the tour. So if we carry on the tour here in the inner garden, where I've made an alleyway out to behind our annex, and this area of our garden is called Island Garden because I have an island of trees in the middle and I've planted some different plants in there. Here you can see more of the beautiful Thuja Brabant that are acting as a wall between the island garden and Cozy Cove, as you can see here. I have a few pots and you can see they are actually full of boxwood as well. So they're evergreen. So I don't have to go in and change them up all the time every season, and during the winter I can still come out and see that there are green plants in here, and this becomes so cozy and feels kind of enclosed during the summer as the canopy of the trees grows above as well. Now we're in the garden area called Bonfire Garden. As you saw, there was a fire pit there, and I have more Thuja Brabant growing around the edge of this part of the garden, and that separates the Garden of New Beginnings, Cozy Cove, and then here you can see onward into our courtyard garden area. And well, here I just want to do a little something for you. I love the snow and I just couldn't help getting myself into it, so I decided to make a snow angel. And see, as I make this angel, I kind of disappear because the snow is so deep. This was so much fun to do. Oh, if you have the chance to get into the snow, go and do it. And if you don't, enjoy this video because the snow is so much fun. And as I said, it's not cold at the moment. So let's have a closer look at how that snow angel turned out. Oh, I love it. Look at that. It's not just for kids. Us adults can have just as much fun in the snow, and I think this worked out pretty well. So anyway, let's carry on. And now we're crossing through the Garden of New Beginnings and we'll walk down one of the pathways in the wild orchard garden again, because I want to show you our taller, maturer Norway spruce trees. Now these are a couple that are tall, but they're absolutely not the tallest we have here. Wait till you see what we have when we get to the end of this pathway. And on the left, as we go by here, I have a large stone here. I love this stone. I usually have a Buddha figure on here in the summer, and I come and sit and meditate on that. Or I should call it a rock as well. Here you can see the cottage and the annex. And then we'll carry on, and then you can see in the distance here my huge Norway spruce trees that I love so much. They're so tall, mature, and majestic and beautiful, and they just grow around about at least 0.5 meter to 1 meter taller every single year. They grow very fast, and at the top they have lovely pine cones on them, and I can come and collect pine cones that fall down around the bottom of these trees, and they are just lovely. They've got thick trunks, and I really love that. So now we're actually crossing into Crystal Woods, and here I have a lot of different types of trees, and I just want to show you one here particularly, this one. This is a Norway spruce, a young one, and it shows you how flexible they are while they're young. If they get top heavy because of the snow, see, just give it a little kick and it will bounce up and that will start straightening out itself again. So they're so perfect and flexible for snowy seasons. So as we carry on here, you're going to notice that I have a couple more taller Norway spruce trees growing here in our Crystal Woods. But before that, you can see this area where I have a lot of rocks growing. I call this my little Japanese garden. It's a little rock garden, and I enjoy that much more, of course, in the summer where I can see all the rocks that I've cleaned off. Because a lot of them get moss on, which is absolutely gorgeous, but I wanted an area where I could appreciate the rocks, and those rocks are full of quartzite, so I get to see these beautiful quartz in them as well, and I love that. So here, again, a couple more of my beautiful, tall, mature Norway spruce trees. Look at them, they're just gorgeous. And these have obviously been growing here for many, many years before we even bought our cottage, and they will never be chopped down because I think they are lovely and I really want evergreen plants as much as possible. So as we move forward now back towards the Garden of New Beginnings, you can see I've planted a few more Thuja Brabant in this area of the garden. And we have a pond area that we're trying to fix, which is still not sorted out yet, but at some point it will be, and it's going to be gorgeous. This is the Garden of New Beginnings, a project I started on last summer, and it's taking off really well. And now we're back into Bonfire Garden and going on towards our Courtyard garden again. So that was my February 2021 tour of the garden and a look at the evergreen plants that are thriving in these conditions. And behind me I have my snow angel that I made just before. I just couldn't help getting more into the snow. I absolutely love when it snows. It takes me back to feeling so innocent and everything is pure and the sounds are dampened and it's just like, it's just a wonderland. It just fills me with happiness and it's bright and it's fresh and it breaks up the winter months beautifully. So I just wanted to show you this, especially those of you that live in climates where it doesn't ever snow or it snows a little bit but doesn't reach like 30 or so centimeters so that you can enjoy being out in it and see it for days on end where it's very bright. So just before I end the video completely, I wanted to show you a couple of pots. Here I have a variegated ivy growing and these do very well out in the winter months. I'm surprised that these ones, the deer haven't been and munched on. So I have two pots with these in and they're doing very well. Any ivy that I plant in the ground or out in the botanical garden, they go and eat everything. But here in this pot, or these two pots, they haven't touched them. And you can see here I have some kinds of miniature evergreen balls and they look so pretty in these pots. They do well all winter and all summer and they're growing a little bit each year and I really enjoy looking at them and the combination with the variegated ivy. So well, all I have to say now is thank you very much once again for watching Gardens and Crystals with me, Wesley Peterson. Please remember to like, subscribe and hit the bell so you know when my next video will be coming up. And I will see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.